this weekend, starting today at 11 a.m. It's going to happen today and Monday. We're going to be guided by some folks.
Holiday.
Yeah, Monday the holiday, Veterans Day. And there's also the anti-war veterans gathering tomorrow. But I don't have any time to tell you about this. Go to Joe Moore's website and look at how to protect our precious lakefront. We're going to be planting native grasses, the kind of thing that might help us if we ever get a Sandy coming up the fresh coast.
Okay, and tomorrow at 8 a.m., be here before 8 a.m., is the Heartland Harvest Run. It's a 5K out on that beautiful lakefront where we will run right by where some of those dunes are developing. Okay, I've asked our pal Thom Clark to join us.
Good morning, Tom.
Good morning, Katie and Michael and David.
And I would like to, we got 4 people who follow politics closely up here now. We've got about 12 minutes till we bring up our next guest. So, Tom, your take on the election.
Well, I was one of these people that felt like I was hand-holding a lot of nervous Nellies through the summer and fall. Understandably, because we knew this was going to be a close one. But to my mind, there were 2 significant things that happened that had me feel fairly confident that we were going to pull off this Electoral College victory, thanks to good work from people like Katie. And the first was David Axelrod coming home after the midterm debacle. Because that's when the ground game organization, which quite frankly, the White House, the Democratic Party, had let kind of dissemble, except in a couple of places like Ohio and Wisconsin. But in the rest of the swing state territory of the country, that whole Obama for America organizing effort had kind of been put in the back burner. And some of us who lived through the Harold Washington experience should have known better about letting that whole kind of thing kind of, go in the back burner. And number 2 was the heavy ad campaign with a battered, broke Romney coming out of the primaries that he won, but then he's kind of, if you will, swift-boated by this ad campaign, labeling him as a job destroyer. And I don't think, along with tactical errors Romney made along the way, he ever quite recovered from that. And so, to my mind, as we've seen with this president before, the calm, cool demeanor, he and Axelrod tended to be 2 or 3 steps ahead of the rest of us.
Yeah.
And having a strategy worked out that they really, as an old organizer might do, really kept their attention on the grindstone, eye on the prize, and they pulled it off.
I think what I take away from this election is not just that we won, but that we've positioned ourselves for what the United States of America is and going to become. And
yes.
We won this election without white men, because we're not really the majority. Right. A few of us, like Bill Maher said last night, I'm one of the good guys. But still, the white men are not the majority demographic of this population anymore. And we did it with Latinos, women, single women. We're like, how could any woman vote for, a Republican? So we've got the thing figured out, and that's what I take away.
My favorite line of the week was when Jon Stewart said, "And Florida, it's decided without you." It was a great moment.
Let me read you all something that Wayne Fraser sent over here yesterday, and I found it very moving. He said, for the last month, African-American preachers preached at their churches about the civil rights movement in the 60s. And they asked the parents to talk about it with their children, how important it is to go vote. So all the work granny, Big Mommy, as they say, and all the other people who fought for the right to vote, hard work will not go in vain. Some churches showed movies of Big Bull Connor opposition to civil rights, and other movies how the South and sometimes the North suppressed the vote. It was amazing how voters stood in line for 4 to 6 hours and longer to cast their vote. November 6th is a day we can all be proud of.
And we had a lot of that this election in Ohio and Florida and other states. We proved that you just can't spend billions of dollars and buy an election. We had people out in those states giving people food in lines, playing music. This has to be fixed, as the president said.
As one of my more favorite cartoons, postmortem, with a picture of the White House, the one house Mitt couldn't buy.
Really?
I think that's, and we showed...
Say that again, I missed it.
a picture of the White House with the label, "The one house Mitt Romney couldn't buy."
Oh, good. Oh, nice.
And
Didn't have a car elevator. He didn't want it, probably.
what we need to learn from this, not to be calm about it, is it took an incredibly well executed grassroots organizing campaign. Some of us feel we know something about that, but we haven't always felt rewarded for those efforts in the past. The real challenge now is holding this guy's feet to the fire. And I'm remembering announcement weekend,
This guy being Obama.
February '07, at the end of his speech in Springfield, and then he went off to Iowa, and
Right.
he came back and did the pavilion, and some of us were at a private fundraiser at the Hyatt. I still remember seeing Valerie Jarrett very alone waiting. It was the last time I didn't have to go through heavy security to see Barack.
Yeah.
And every visit since, I've been further back in the crowd. But I'm 15 feet
With
in
good
front of the
reason,
stage.
Tom.
Yes, I know. I'm a dangerous guy.
Scary guy.
But Barack ended that talk tonight before he went out into the crowd. There were about 350 of us, with a very clear, this is going to be a tough campaign. If we win, I'm going to have to do this and that. You're going to have to hold my feet to the fire.
Oh, he said that many times.
And
But some people say that that's not really a true thing. And there's a bunch of ex-SNCC people who were talking about they're not so sure he really will. So,
well, whether he wants us to or not, what I'm saying is we need to continue the organizing to indeed hold his feet to the fire, because global warming, immigration reform, a bunch of things that aren't part of the physical cliff are as important or more so.
yeah, I've always said that what happens after we win an election is the progressives tend to just lay back, whether that was Jimmy Carter, whether that was Harold Washington here in town. Well, it's happened over and over that we get a victory, we come to, oh, what a relief, and then we lay back too much. Now is not the time, and hopefully this time will be different in history when we will be focused on 2014 and 2016.
Right. We need to make ourselves part of the Democratic Party so that we're on the inside and we can make our
And we can still turn to the left,
values
right?
known. Absolutely. That's the point.
Hey, there's a group of people who were demonstrating yesterday at the Federal Building. People got arrested for doing just exactly that. They were in front of Durbin's office, and they have a program, a platform, if you will. They're called iRun. You can look them up online. They've got an entire platform for values, for a covenant for economic justice. Basically, they're still saying, we're not going to pay for Wall Street's bungles. And so, things like economic justice, the common good, healthcare, criminal justice, a lot of things that were not mentioned in this election, like the incredible status of our incarceration rate in this country. We have to address these things. And, of course, the obvious, climate change, which came up to be right in our faces thanks to Sandy. In any case, one thing that Michael was intent on us talking about was the lack of success that the religious right had in this election. You want to talk about that at all, Tom?
We as a practicing Catholic, we had our leadership from time to time suggesting that there was only one appropriate vote for us to make. Catholics voted in the majority for Barack Obama. They also voted for marriage equality. One could argue that in addition to the rightward-leaning GOP leadership, the Catholic bishops took it on the chin in terms of their effort to influence.
About time.
And I will say to their credit, because the American bishops meet this coming week, amongst other business on their agenda is a resolution for the canonization of Dorothy Day. Who would have ever thought that we'd be looking at that?
The Catholic workers.
Yep. So the Christian right failed to sway voters on the issues in general.
I think that their influence has been tremendously diluted, but I do not think they're gone.
Yeah, that's right. Although there was a moment on Tuesday night when we were standing in that crowd, and what was appearing on the screens was the Marriage Fair Equality for Marriage Act passing in 4 states or 3 states, and the other one being voted down. 2 states vote for pot. I turn to Michael, I say, these guys are looking at each other going, we're going to hell in a handbasket here. What's going on?
Well, it's It's not that they're gone, but they've been diminished because we now know that if we present the population with a rational plan for the future, that this right-wing religious doctrine isn't going to make it. People don't buy it. So it's the base of the GOP. They can have it if they want it.
Exactly.
I think that if I were an evangelical, I would be very disappointed about how the party I was trying to influence treated me. And this is why I think we need to be careful. These folks aren't going away. And to my mind, one of the real dangers at this moment, when you had the president yesterday really making a very hands-out to compromise kind of speech, and the Republican leadership still not leaving their bubble in their response, we have a tough challenge in figuring out how to engage the other side. Rachel Maddow, of all people, ended her Wednesday night analysis by making a similar clarion call. We're in a republic. We need two sides to put their best ideas up, to engage in a debate, to come up with an even better idea. And one party the last 4 years has not chosen to be part of that debate. We need you, folks, the Republicans, in order to fully engage us, in order to move forward to deal with real problems that we're facing. We won't solve global warming if somehow evangelicals and other folks can't somehow be brought along for the ride, because they will continue to resist what other reasonable people might want to try to do to solve some of these problems. So that's another challenge I think we face, is figuring out how we make room for people that may seem like strange bedfellows, but in fact, we want them to be part of our future organizing and campaign.
All right, I want to bring up, there's a lot of talk about how the Republicans really didn't get any Latinos, didn't get any blacks, they missed on a lot of things. So there's a lot of talk about them becoming more inclusive. So, what is the deal? Will they, not all Republicans are racists. We know that there's racism throughout the society, but do they think they can just sort of make a few statements and change some policies and switch this thing around? I don't see how they can do that. Anyone have any thoughts on that?
We'll wait and see. We got a big challenge coming up within the next few weeks, the fiscal cliff. And we'll see how the Republicans respond, because this is going to affect everybody in the country. They're still talking, John Boehner's still talking about, tax increases are not in the bargain. There was an election Tuesday. We ran on that there was going to be tax increases. So, and the evangelicals, we obviously we need everybody in the United States on board.
Yeah, but you know what? I think that what that says to me is Boehner saying that, indicating more obstructionism up front. I do believe, a big chunk of us who worked on this campaign haven't finished yet.
Yeah, we want Obama to take it on the road.
We have to go to Wisconsin. We have to go to Washington and knock on Boehner's door and say, shut the blankety blank up. Get to work. We elected this guy. We can unelect you in 2 years. And we're watching. I mean, that's what has to happen. And reasonable Republicans, sure. I'm not going to do the kiss, hug that Michael's doing, because there aren't just two sides.
Wait a minute, what was that? I missed it.
I know. You're not paying attention.
Well,
I'm going to say what I want. Then there's all the people who thought that Barack Obama was the lesser of two evils. Where do those folks go? So we've got a job to do that talks, I think, first to the issues, and then to the candidates who either support or deny those issues.
When you're the re-elected head of a dying empire, or shall I say a shifting empire, there are going to be challenges keeping your, in this case, left flank happy. I know there's one conference going on this weekend in Baltimore, Facing Race, Facing Ourselves, that Color Lines is sponsoring. That conference has a very different flavor because of what happened on Tuesday. But by and large, these are folks who are not as engaged in the electoral process because they had kind of given up on it. And yet I think those are the sort of folks that are part of the new face of America going forward and do have deep tentacles in the grassroots and a keen sense of organizing. That, to my mind, is more where our future is going to kind of emerge. And I don't know that the Republicans can easily catch up Rubio, people like that, kind of moving into leadership positions. I don't see that happening overnight.
We would love to explore possible candidates for the 2016, but we will. But both you guys have done a great job, not only in the election work, but in discussing it here. I want to thank both Dave Cogan and Thom Clark, and we'll have you back, gentlemen. And right now we're going to hear a little tune from Tiny Miles and the Big Kids, and then we're going to bring actually Miles Zabin up here and talk to him a little bit. So let's hear